we read that Moshe Rabbeinu was almost killed because of the situation about circumcising his son. It's different Mefarshim deal with it differently, but what we see from the Chumash, it seems to imply Vatikach Sipora, that his wife went ahead and did the circumcision. So halachically, is that permissible? Could a woman be a mohel or a moheles? And in general, our mothers obligated in their son's circumcision. So we'll deal with the second question first, then we'll go back to the first. So there's a pasuk in, I think it's Parshas Vayera, or in that area. It says that God, when Avram circumcised his son Yitzchak, kasher tziva oso, as God commanded him. So the Gemara in Kiddushin and Afchaf Tes has a famous drasha, kasher tziva oso, oso v'lo osa, that the obligation is only on daddy and not mommy to ensure that your son gets circumcised. That's the Gemara. Comes along Tosfos and has this famous kasha. Many of the Rishonim deal with the question and give different answers. That Tosfos says, what are the pasuk to exclude Sarah from being commanded in the Brit Milah, or any mother for that matter? We know we have a famous principle also in Mishnah Kiddushin, a mitzvah aseh shahazman grama nashim peturos, that a time-oriented mitzvah women are exempt from. Since Brit Milah has to be done on day 8, so it's a classical mitzvah aseh shahazman grama, and therefore women are patur anyway. So why do I need the pasuk of oso v'lo osa? The implication being, if not for the pasuk, I would have thought she was chayev. So what exactly is what was the havamina? So Tosfos answers, he quotes a shita actually we don't paskin like. He quotes a Gemara in Yavamas. We know Ulayom Hashmini Yimo Basar Allah, so you have a bris milah on the 8th day. What about at night? Could you do a bris milah at night? So the answer is no. Ulayom. It also excludes Laila. So we can't do a bris before day 8, and we can't do a bris any time at night. That's the way we paskin. We paskin even day 10 you can't do at night. But there's an opinion in the Gemara that says once you pass day 8, all holds bars, everything goes. You could do it. It's a 24-hour obligation.
Yeah, that's what he means. No holds bars.
Very good, Jeff. I got that call had an impact on you this morning. But don't worry about your warm-up soon. So the Gemara says, so according to this opinion, that so Tosfos says, the Gemara is working lo aliba de hilchasa, it's not going aliba de hilchasa, and therefore, according to that opinion, that bris milah is not a mitzvah hasei shazman grama, I would have thought a mother is obligated, kamash malan, oso v'lo osa. That's Tosfos in Kiddushin. Comes along Rabbi Akiva Eger and says, wait a second, even according to that opinion, what about a milah b'Shabbos? You only could do a milah b'zmana on Shabbos. If it's day 9, day 12, day 25, you have to push off again. So if the baby's not healthy, so you don't do it on day 8. So the earliest time possible, you do it. Some people, there was an old minhag that the Noda B'Yehuda did not go for. That some people, well, there are different minhagim. That I think in Breuer's, that some have a minhag. The halacha is you're supposed to do the bris right away, day 10. If it's Wednesday, Thursday, some have a minhag to wait until Sunday because if they get more people, etc., etc. So some are against that minhag that the kid, you have a chi of kares hanging over you, should do it right away. No, the Yehuda spoke about a different minhag. I'm assuming it had to be at least close to Pesach. They used to wait the Erev Pesach. So I bet a kid's born like during Shavuot, so I don't know if they waited until Erev Pesach, but he quoted a minhag that because people didn't want to fast on Erev Pesach for the firstborns. So either way, they're not the preferable minhag, that you should do a milah right away. Whether it's day 9, 10, 11, the first day possible, you should do it. There's a discussion among the poskim, perhaps not on a Thursday, because it gets into an issue of bitul oneg Shabbos. The question is, I'm not sure for who. I'm not sure what the kid's eating. Maybe the parents are suffering because the kids are crying. But we have a tradition, the third day after a surgery, third day after a Mila is the worst time. So that's a discussion, in fact, not tonight yet, whether you should do whether a ger should convert on, meaning should you do the Mila on Thursday, should you do a Mila Shelo Bismana? Some want to make a distinction because a gerish you don't have to do today. What's the difference? Wait until the next day or do it before. But even a bris Mila Shelo Bismana, the chiyuv to do it right away. So there's a discussion among the poskim which gets into as well optional elective surgery on Thursday. It's the same shiloh, whether you should put yourself in a situation where you might lead to either Chilul Shabbos or might lead to Bitul Oneg Shabbos. So either way, that's a discussion. So Rabbi Akiva Eiger has, even according to that opinion, that after day 8 you could do it day and night, so it's not as mangra. But what about Shabbos? We know only a Mila Bismana could be done on Shabbos. So why isn't it as mangrama? So Rabbi Akiva Eiger answers because what happens if B'diavad, let's say day 10, see before day 8 that's a bigger shiloh, it's not so pasha, because it's before day 8. But let's say day 10, day 20, you went ahead and did a Mila on Shabbos. So you should, if you ask the rabbi before, should I do the Mila? I'll tell you no, wait until Sunday. But let's say you did it, you didn't know, whatever the case was, so B'diavad, the Mila is good. We're not going to, well, sorry, the Mila is not, since it was after day 8, you shouldn't have done it on Shabbos, but if you did it anyway, so you go to the Rabbi Akiva Eiger, which is a discussion among the Achronim, what is the definition of Zman Grama? Do you go by, if B'diavad, the mitzvah could be even, let's say you go by the Lechatchila to the B'diavad. So Rabbi Akiva Eiger says you go by the B'diavad. If bottom line, I went ahead and did a Bris Milah on day 12 and it happened to be on Shabbos, I'm Yotzi, so therefore it's not considered as Zman Grama. And that's the Tosfos in Kedushin says, that since it's not as Magram, because after day 8 you could do a Yoma Malayla, so I need the Pasuk also V'lo Osa to teach, to exclude a mother that she doesn't have the obligation. That's Tosfos in Kedushin. Tosfos in Megillah gives a different answer, Tafchaf. He goes to a different Mahalach. We know there, usually for a Bittul Mitzvahs Aseh, when you nullify a positive commandment, there's no punishment. And it's usually if you violate a lav, a negative commandment, there's an onish. So, however, there are two exceptions to the rule where if you mavatel mitzvahs aseh, it's not like an onesh b'dei adam, it's an onesh b'dei shamayim. The two mitzvahs aseh that you mavatel, one is that we don't do today, the Karban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb. The one that doesn't bring a Karban Pesach is Chayev Chares. And the second one is Bris Milah. You mavatel the mitzvahs aseh of Milah, so you Chayev Kares. The question is who's Chayev Kares? When is it on the father, the son until 13? That's a further discussion in the Minchas Tina. But either way, there's a Chayev Kares. So Tosfos writes in Megillah that we see already Mila is different. It's an Aseh Sheyesh Bo Kares. So Tosfos says in Megillah, I would have thought that since Mila is an Aseh Sheyesh Bo Kares, we treat it like a lav. And therefore, women are obligated in negative commandments the same as positive. So I would have thought the exemption of mitzvahs aseh shazman grama only applies by shofar, mila, lulav, the classical mitzvahs aseh shazman grama. But in mitzvahs aseh sheish bo kares, I would have thought we could treat it like a lav. Kamash malan, oso v'lo osa. That's Tosfos in Megillah. The Ramban and the Ritva in Kedushin give a different answer. They say, I might have thought, when is a woman pater from a mitzvah aseh shazman grama? That's the classical, when you're shaking a lulav sitting in the sukkah. When it has to do, it's on you, you're doing the mitzvah. But since Mila is on someone else, you're doing the mitzvah on the son, so what does it have to do with you? Maybe zman grama has nothing to do with the situation here because there's a third party here. Kamash v'lan, osa v'lo osa. No, even though it's not the classical mitzvah aseh shazman grama, nevertheless, a woman is still pater, and the Ramban says something similar. He writes that there's a concept the Gemara talks about if the father's not around, so the Beis Din becomes obligated to make sure the Jewish community is obligated that this child gets gemalt. So let's say the father's not around, so the Ramban writes, who's the next in line? It's the mother, not B'Torah, the mother, but B'Torah is part of the Jewish community that she'll take on the responsibility to ensure. Correct. Very good, like we started off. Right? Like Sipori did it by Moshe. And therefore, I might think B'Torah's Beis Din should be Chayev. Therefore, Osa v'lo Osa, is excluding her. There's a famous Tosas Harid as well for A5 that Tosas Harid writes that we have to redefine the texture of the mitzvah. That we're assuming, if it's a Zman Grama, you're assuming what is the mitzvah? The mitzvah is the Maisa Chaticha. It's the actual cutting of the arla. So that's it. How long does it take? Depends who the mohel is, but some take 30 seconds, some take 30 minutes. But whatever it takes, it's just the act of cutting off the arla. However, the Tosrit says that the mitzvah is the whole preparation to ensure that the bris is done. So that's not just calling the mohel. You got to call the doctor. You got to get the caterer. You got to tell the people about the bris milah. So the Tosrit says it's not a mitzvah sasei shazma. It's a continuous mitzvah. You're starting worrying right from the time the child's born up until day 8. So it's not a zman grama at all. If it's not a zman grama, therefore I need the pasuk oso v'lo osa to exclude women. So he redefines the mitzvah like we find, like there's a medrash, it's a Gemara in the 19th parak of Shabbos by David HaMelech, that he was sitting in the Beis HaMerchat and he was mitzvah. He says, I can't do any mitzvahs in here. And then he said, until he's niskar his milah. He remembered about the mitzvah of milah. So what do you mean? He just got come out today? What's the mitzvah? So the Rishonim Akarim point out that there's a mitzvah, there's two parts to it. There's a mitzvah of the Maisa Chaticha, but there's a mitzvah being Gamal, and that's continuous, and therefore it's not as Mangrama, therefore Oso v'lo Osa excludes women. Comes along, right, that's the two parts. You have the bracha ala mila is for the Maisa Chaticha, and lahachna is the brisha of Avinu, that's on the second, that's being a Jew, that's being Gamal. We're following the footsteps of Avram Avinu. And A6 is based on a Turi Evan. He talks about it in a different context of smicha, but it's the same yisod. That when do we say a woman is pater from a mitzvah saseh shazman grama? That's a classical chovas hayachid. That's when we deal with personal obligations. Again, shofar, lulav, sukkah, etc. But a chovas hatzibor, when it's a public obligation, that's not true. So what's an example? There's the Rambam writes that women are obligated in the mitzvah of binyan beis hamikdash. So yet the Rambam himself writes the mitzvah is only biyom and not balayla. So they all ask on the Rambam, like, what's going on? You're contradicting yourself. But one is you're telling me there's no mitzvah at night, which makes it a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, and the next second you're telling me women are obligated. It's a discussion what they're obligated and what they're not. So one of the answers is based on the Turi Evan. When do we say a woman's exempt from a mitzvah saseh shazman grama? That's a chovetz hayachid. But to build the Beis HaMikdash, to build the Mishkan, that's a chovetz hatzibor. Women are bechlal the tzibor, and therefore the chayev. So too here, like the Ramban said, it's true maybe strictly speaking, it's oso v'lo osa. But out part of the Jewish community, part of the basin, women are chayev, and therefore it's a chovetz hatzibor, and therefore, like the Mishkan, and therefore our thought women are an exempt because it's a chovetz hatzibor. I need the special pasuk oso v'lo osa. So let's summarize. So we have 6 potential answers to the kasha. The pasuk says oso v'lo osa to exclude only Avram's chayev and not Sarah. It's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. What do I need any pasuk? I'll learn it out mitzvah. So Tosas in Kedushin said because it's going according to the opinion it says past day 8 you could do a yom v'layla, and therefore it's not as zman grama. Therefore I need the pasuk. Shabbos. Rabbi Kiva writes b'diavad it's good, so therefore it doesn't make it. It still allows zman grama. 8:2 Tosas in Megillah. It's a mitzvah saseh sheyesh bo karei, so we treat it like a lav. I would have thought women's chayev. Kamash Balan osa v'lo osa. 8:3 we had the Rishonim, the Ramban, the Ritva, that basically it's only pater for a mitzvah which is on the body. You're doing yourself, like you're sitting in the sukkah, you're shaking the wood, but it's on the third party. Why would maybe there's no exemption as man grama? Kamash Balan there is, or the Ramban says similar along the lines, but out part of being part of the base din. That is like if a father's not chayav, but the rest of the Jewish community is, so therefore, like the mother, like we saw by Tzipporah. And then the 5th answer we had was the Tosas Harid. He redefines the texture. The mitzvah isn't the Maisa Chaticha. The mitzvah is ensuring your child's gamal. That starts early, calling the caterer, the moel, etc. from day 1. And then we have the Turi Evans approach that we're using here, that the woman will be patur from a choves hayochid, but not a choves hatzibur, and therefore we need the pasuk also below also to exclude them. We were discussing yesterday the obligation of the father for the bris milah, and the Gemara in Kiddushin deduced from the pasuk that God commanded Abraham and not Sarah, kasher tziba oso below osa. From here we learn out the commandment is on the father, not the mommy. Not that the mommy can't do it. As we'll see, maybe the mother can even be the mohel. But in terms of an obligation to ensure that the son gets gamalt, that is on the father. Kasher tziba oso below osa. So Tosfos has been busy, pointed out the famous question, why do I need a special pasuk to exempt the mother? Of course the mother's exempt, because Milah is a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. Milah is a time-oriented mitzvah. It has to be done on day 8. And the Mishnah tells us, Nasham Peturas mi mitzvah saseh shazman grama. Women are patur from time-oriented mitzvahs. They're exempt. So why do we need a special verse to exclude them? They're excluded anyway from the general rule. So Tosfos himself answered, the answer is that according to the opinion that we don't follow, but according to the opinion in the Gemara, that once you pass day 8, you could do the bris milah, yomam v'layla, there is no restrictions. We paskin uvayom hashmini, that we paskin, you always have to do the bris during the day, whether it's after day 8 or on day 8. We assume it's always a bris milah at night is never good. But according to the opinion that bris milah is good at night after day 8, so therefore bris milah would be a mitzvah saseh shalav hazman grama. It would be a non-time-oriented mitzvah. Hence, the woman would be obligated. Kamash malan, I need the pasuk oso v'lo osa to exclude women. That's how Tosfos in Megillah, Tosfos in Kiddushin. We point out Rabbi Eger asked the question on Tosfos. He says, what are you talking? If you assume that milah only applies, it does apply at night after day 8, but we know a milah cannot be done on Shabbos. Only a milah bizmana can be done on Shabbos. Oh, a team effort, I like that. Only a milah bizmana can be done on Shabbos, not a milah shalom bizmana. So therefore, to Rabbi Eger, it should be a time-oriented mitzvah anyway, because it can't be done on Shabbos. Which, so Rabbi Eger answers, no, it's not a kasha, because since b'di'evet, post facto, if you end up doing a milah before day 8, it wouldn't be good even during the week. But let's say it's day 20, it's day 12, it's day 50, and you ended up doing a milah shalom bizman on Shabbos. If you asked me before, and I tell you no, but if you did it afterwards, I say it's a go. So yeah, one's probably enough for that one. 1 and 1, yeah. So therefore, Rabbi Gabriel points out, since b'di'evet, it's good, so therefore it's not considered as man grama according to Tosfos. So, which is interesting discussion on how you define a mitzvah saseh shaz man grama. Do you go by something that by the lechatchilos or the b'di'evet? If something that you shouldn't do is, like, let's say you should only do on a certain time, but if you did it anyway, it's good. But so Rabbi Eger seems to say you go with the b'di'evet, which, let me tell you a little secret, in halacha, that's how we usually define things, by the b'di'evet, not the lechatchilas. The lechatchilas are things you should do, and beforehand, that's the optimal way. Halacha, when we talk about b'di'evet, that's how you get down to the root of the halacha. Let's say, because you find many times in a time of need we permit something. So what does that mean? So let's say the general custom is that we don't eat egg matzah on Pesach. But however, the Shulchan Aruch brings down, and it says it on the matzahs, and you can read Hebrew, someone who is sick or elderly is permitted to have matzah, egg matzah. All right, so what do you mean? So could you have egg matzah or not? What do you mean? He could have and I can't? You mean if he's sick, he could also have bread? then no. So obviously, if he's sick enough, he can. If his life's in danger. But really, what we're saying is really, egg matzah is really permitted on Pesach. Our minig is not to eat it, and that's the custom. So we only get the root of the halacha based on the b'di'evet, that you know that really you can have egg matzah, except the custom, because it's a machlokas Rashi and Tosas, maybe it's really a problem. Maybe it's chametz nuksha, so therefore we don't do it. But again, so therefore Rabbi Akiva Eiger tells us here, you find the core halacha by the b'di'evet. Right, so therefore that was Tosas in Kedushin. Tosas in Megillah pointed out a different reason why I say I need the pasuk, because since it's an aseh sheyesh bo kares, it's considered like a lav. In other words, we know women are equally obligated. We don't discriminate against women when it's negative commandments. They have to keep Shabbos, they have to keep Yantif, even though there are some halachas of shaving, etc., that there are some differences between men and women. But generally speaking, we're equal when it comes to the negative commandments. So they point out that since Mila is a aseh sheyesh bo kares, so therefore it's like a lav, therefore perhaps it's one of the few positive commandments, failure to do it results in an onesh. Or be not an onesh b'dei adam, but a heavenly punishment, that one is chayev kares if they don't have a bris milah and karban pesach. So therefore,
the son or the father?
That's a good kasha. So it depends on who the chayev is. Until at 13, it's definitely the son. It's once she turns 13 and doesn't do the bris milah. The question is, like the Minchas Chinuch discussed, does the obligation still remain on the father after 13? But the bottom line is, once you turn 13, it's on you anyway. So the bottom line is, but as the Rambam writes, but it's one of those mitzvahs where, as long as you do the milah before you die, you're not chayav kares. In other words, if the kares is hanging over you, but as long as you do the milah, it takes away. Yeah, Abi.
Can they based it force you Bal Karfa to do it?
You, the son, the father?
Either or.
Yeah, so it's a general. In fact, that's the halacha. In fact, the Gemara in Kedushin talks about it's the father's obligation to ensure that the son gets gamal. So the shaila is, what happens if there is no father? The father's not alive, you don't know who he is, he left town. So then it's the obligation on the beis din. So therefore, that it falls into the general mitzvah of kofen also. But
But then the Rambam would hold, then maybe that you would whatever ways you have to use in order to try and get them to do it.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, like I'm saying, obviously, we don't have the power of kofen. That's always today, they'll sue you if you give me a bris milah and stuff. But again, I'm sure there must have been cases like that already where they sued the parents and stuff, or whatever the case is. I know, especially today, when we're dealing with some places are saying like they're banning circumcision, certain places in Europe, in terms of that. But it's a general rule. But mili even more so, because it aseh sheyesh bo kares. So there'd be, whatever the general rule is, kofen also on a mitzvah aseh, but on a milah, according to Tosas Megillah, might even have a status of a lo aseh, because it's an aseh sheyesh. So therefore, I need a special pasuk to tell me that even though it's an aseh sheyesh bo kares, and maybe I think it's like a negative commandment, hence a mother would be chayev to gamal hasan. The answer is she's not obligated. Another approach was the Tosas Harid. He redefines the texture of the mitzvah. That is, what is the mitzvah milah? Is the mitzvah? Is it this the actual cutting off of the arla? Is that the mitzvah? The ma'isa chaticha? That's it? Well, no. It's a continuous mitzvah. The mitzvah begins before. The mitzvah continues after. Like it says, David HaMelech was in the merchatz, was in the bathhouse, and different versions, whether he looked at his place of first he was mitzvah, he couldn't do any mitzvahs. He was stuck in the bathhouse, so he couldn't do any mitzvahs, so he was mitzvah until he was either thought about his milah, looked at it, and then he was comforted. So the question is like, what was he comforted about? Did he just do the bris milah like he just did the milah then, or right away? He wasn't 8 days old at that point. He also shouldn't have been in a bathhouse, or many other reasons why he wasn't. So the answer is that, to some extent we see from here, the mitzvah isn't just the Ma'aseh Chaticha, but it's a continuous mitzvah, being Gemalt. In fact, that's why we have two brachas. We make the bracha Al Hamila, that's on the Ma'aseh Chaticha, and then you have, usually the father makes the bracha about, with Avram Avinu, V'hachtas V'briso, that's on continuing in the covenant of Avram Avinu, so it's a continuous mitzvah. The Tosas Harid writes that the mitzvah isn't just done, it's not a mitzvah saseh shazman grama mila, because just from the moment the child's born, you have to get the doctors, you got to get the moel, you got to get the caterers, you're constantly working day and night to ensure. Your job is not just to do the act of cutting, else it would be a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. Your job is to make sure the meal is done, and that's a continuous mitzvah. And therefore the Tosas Harid says, meal is a mitzvah saseh she'ein hazman grama. If it's a mitzvah saseh she'ein hazman grama, we understand why we need a pasuk. We need a pasuk, oso v'lo oso, to exclude the mother. And there's one more, I'm not going to review them all, and the other one was the Turi Even. The Turi Even, in a different context, because there's a famous Rambam, you could check, it's one of the few Sherman YU Torah, but don't really be a lot more, that I went 62, what do you mean? Because you forgot about Joel's contribution. He seems to be giving up on that. That's where Shlomo Eli comes in this week. So he points out that there's a big difference, as we pointed out, between a personal obligation and a communal obligation. That we know the classical mitzvah is a chovas hayachid, that a person has to, you're going to put on tefillin, put on a talis, you'll sit in the sukkah, you'll shake the lulav, those are a chovas hayachid. There are other mitzvahs which are a chovas hatzibor, a communal obligation. As we pointed out, the apparent contradiction in the Rambam, that the Rambam on one hand points out when it comes to the mitzvah of building the Beis HaMikdash, building the Mishkan, he writes the mitzvah based on the pasuk, Yom hu kames ha-Mishkan. The mitzvah of building the Mishkan is during the day. So Yom v'lo Laila. On the other hand, the Rambam writes, women are chayiv in the mitzvah as well. Women are included in the mitzvah of binyan Beis HaMikdash, of binyan HaMishkan. So the Mefarshim ask on the Rambam, well, which one is it? If you're telling me the mitzvah is a Yom and not Laila, that's a classical mitzvah saseh shazman grama. It's a classical time-oriented mitzvah, so women should be exempt. How could it be a time-oriented mitzvah and at the same time women be chayav? So there's many answers, but the one answer we want to focus on is this answer, that because when do we say women are exempt from time-oriented mitzvahs? That's only if on a personal obligation, as being a b'toras isha. If they're chayav in something personally, so then we get into the technical exclusions of zman grama. But if it's a chovas hatzibor, if it's a communal obligation, so the women are part of the tzibor as much as men, and therefore they'd be chayiv, and therefore, so to here, Mila is a communal obligation. If a father doesn't do it, then the basin, if not the basin, someone else, and who other greater than the mother? The mother, as we read last week, that when Moshe was mitzatzel b'mil, whatever that means exactly, he wasn't taking that whole incident, a difficult parsha, and we read this week about why Moshe might have been chayiv misa, not taking care of them. He had good reasons, but whatever the kudu was there, but we see Tzipora took care of it. Vatikach Tzipora, and she did the bris milah, and therefore that's what they explain. So therefore you need a special pasuk, oso, because normally she would be chayiv, like any mitzvah b'tzibor. That's why it's one of the reasons they give. We know the bracha, hopefully you already made, but if you didn't make it, the Birkas HaTorah you make every morning. So it says, Nashim chayavas b'Birkas HaTorah. Women are obligated in making the Birkas HaTorah just as men. So it's not a kash on Ashkenaz because women make brachas all the time. But even the Sfardim who normally say women should make brachas on lulav, sukkah, etc., even they agree that a woman has to make the Birkas. So there are many answers, but one is based on the Ramban. The Ramban writes that Birkas HaTorah is a Birkas Shavach V'Hodah. It's a bracha praising, thanking God for giving us the Torah. They're giving the Torah to the Jewish nation. So women are b'chal the Jewish nations, therefore hence the chayiv and Birkas, the same idea. That's what they point to. That's how we explain why a woman is exempt. However, but can she do the milah? So it's true, a mother is not obligated in the bris milah, or any woman, but can she be a moheles? Can a woman actually do the milah? Now, that's actually a discussion. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah and Daf Chav Zayin goes through the discussion: can a Gentile be a moel, and also can a woman be a moel? So Gemara quotes different psukim, excluding why perhaps a Gentile can't be a moel, because you have to be a bar, you have to be chayiv in bris milah. You know what? As a general rule, you have to be a mechuyev b'davar. For me to do a mitzvah for you, I have to be, we're all chayiv in kiddush, so I can make kiddush for you. We're all chayiv in havdalah, I can make havdalah for you. So therefore, when you're a mechuyev b'davar, you can do mitzvah. So Gentile obviously isn't chayiv in bris milah. It's not one of the 7 mitzvahs. He's not chayiv in the Torah. So therefore, the Gemara quotes himo. He quotes different psukim about why a Gentile is exempt. So the question is, what about a woman? On one hand, she's part of chayiv. On the other hand, biologically speaking, she's not chayiv in milah. Obviously, she's not going to have a milah. And even though there is an expression in the Gemara, but in a different context than Yavamas, about she's considered, since she can't do a milah, on a certain hand she's considered like she's automatically gemalt in a certain area. But either way, that's a discussion in the Gemara. 2 days in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, whether a woman is kosher to be a moheles. So how do we paskin? We paskin yes. That we paskin b'makam she'ein ish, if there is no man around, no man who knows how to do a milah, the only person around who could do a milah is a woman. So we paskin that b'di'evet, if there's only a woman around, so she's kosher to do the milah. That's a whole discussion. It's a discussion among the poskim how far we take it. How b'di'evet is it? In other words, let's say we know we take day 8 very seriously, a milah bizmana. We don't like pushing it off. Something which is an aseh sheyesh bo kares. In fact, that's why even though normally the rule is by shofar, by Rosh Hashanah, if it falls out on Shabbos, or on Sukkot, if the first day or any day falls out on Shabbos, we don't do lulav, even though it's a mitzvah daraisa. We're gzeira derava, we're afraid it might lead to chilul Shabbos. Nevertheless, by milah, we don't apply gzeira derava. So there are many answers to that. But one is, it's a mitzvah sheyesh bo kares, we don't want to push it off. So we're very strict about doing a milah bizmana. So that's a discussion in the poskim, if the only one available on day 8. So again, so obviously if you're stuck in the middle of Indonesia somewhere, and you're never going to have a moel come around. In other words, let's say until maybe 30 years, so obviously you're going to do the bris milah. The question is, let's say if you wait to day 9 or day 10, you're going to have a male doing it. So that's a discussion in the poskim. Do you do it anyway on day 8 with the women, or do you wait? And that was a separate discussion. Actually, they had, I think they asked Rav Soloveitchik this many years ago, when people used to, they still do it, but had chaplaincy. So the rabbis used to go, not just out of town, out of country, and they'd be in the middle of nowhere, and they're lucky even to have a Jew around. So it's a whole discussion in terms of, let's say you have a Jew, but a mummer, a machal Shabbos, doesn't keep anything. So that's a shaila itself. Could he be a moel? So the shaila, so again, to b'di'evet, there's what to rely on. But I think they said they asked Rav Soloveitchik. This person was the rabbi out there. He wasn't coming back to New York to about 6 months later. He said, should I get the bris with a Jewish mummer, or should I wait? And he said to wait. He said, wait till you come back. So he felt obviously strongly about not using a Jewish mummer, obviously, for a bris. Obviously, b'di'evet, his model was good. But if you could, so I guess if you weren't coming back, so then you'd have to do it right away. So that's the shaila. Women are exempt from the obligation, oso v'lo osa. However, nevertheless, it's a machlokas in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, whether bottom line, a woman is kosher to be a moheles. Machlokas in the Gemara, but bottom line, b'di'evet, we paskin a woman can be a moheles. However, if you have a man, obviously it's a chadchila to use a man. How far do we go? Do you push, let's say it's a day 8 and you only have a woman, that's a discussion in the poskim whether you would do it. Maybe there's some meta halacha factors that would go into not using a woman, depending on some other factors going around. And however, in terms of a Jewish mummer, so again, that's a discussion. Also, Rav Soloveitchik felt it was better to wait and not do a milah bizmana and have a kosher Yid doing the bris milah and having a Jewish woman do it. Meshach Chochmah, which raises the question about Moshe Rabbeinu, that the pasuk tells us that God tells Moshe to go to Paro Melech Mitzrayim, and it says, and don't worry about it, because the people Hamavakshim Es Nafshecha, the people who want you dead, are no longer around. As Rashi Chazal pointed out, they weren't really dead, they had leprosy, and someone who was Mesorah is Chashav Kameis, but for practical purposes, the danger is over. That's not sugar, that's the fake stuff.
I know, we don't have any sugar for some reason. I shall eat sugar.
The people who are wanting you dead aren't around, and therefore now's the time you could go to Mitzrayim and get the Jews out of Mitzrayim. Right. So the Meshach Chochmah points out, it's mashmash on this pasuk, if the people were around, then you wouldn't have a mitzvah to go. In other words, if you're going to have to risk your life to save the Jewish people in Mitzrayim, then you have no obligation to go. That's the Meshach Chochmah. The question is, do we follow the Meshach Chochmah? That one doesn't, in order to save Klal Yisrael, does one have to risk one's life? Jeff?
I don't know if this is bearing on your shiur today, but I heard an amazing thing that when Moshe went to ask Yisro for permission to leave, could Yisro afford him not being there to help on the farm? I heard say, if you said no, sorry, it's the busy season, Moshe wouldn't have gone. That's amazing. For the comfort, I'd say comfort, for the benefit of Yisro, Moshe wouldn't have saved the Jewish people. It's even more than that.
Right, so very good. So the Meshach Chochmah, it says that, the Meshach Chochmah says that Moshe Rabbeinu would not have been obligated to save the Jewish people. So is that true or not? And if not, how do we explain the pasuk? So there's a famous dispute between the Yerushalmi and Bavli on this issue, but before we get to Klal Yisrael, let's discuss one-on-one. Because if you don't have to save someone one-on-one, you certainly don't have to save Klal Yisrael. So you have to risk your own life to save one person. Let's establish whether that's true, and then we can move on to Rabbi and Klal Yisrael. There's a famous Yerushalmi that Rav Imi was taken captive, and there was a machlokas between Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish. What should we do? So Rav Yochanan said, or Rav Yonasan, different gerses in the Yerushalmi, let's bring out the tachrichim. We have people on the Chevra Kadisha here. You bring out the tachrichim, take out the shrouds, that's it. What are we going to do? We can't go in, we're going to risk our lives, it's too dangerous to go in and save him. That's it, he's going to die. So that's what the Rav Yonasan says. And Rav Yochanan says, let me just give you some history. He was a Baal Tshuva. He used to be a bank robber, Rav Shlokish. So he went down to the basement, he dusted off his machine gun, and he said either we're both going to go in, or he's both going to come out alive, or both dead. So it seems to be a machlokes, Rav Yonasan / Rav Yochanan versus Rish Lakish, whether one has an obligation to risk one's life to save someone else. So the Yerushalmi, the Hagos Maimonides, quotes from the last base Yosef in Choshen Mishpat. If you want to find it, the last base Yosef in Choshen Mishpat quotes this Yerushalmi, and he quotes the Yerushalmi saying one is obligated. He quotes the Rish Lakish version that one is obligated to risk one's life to save someone else,
regardless of the level of risk.
Yeah, at this point it doesn't spell out, but we'll get into that. That'll be an obvious concern. But what's the reason why the Yerushalmi? What's the reason that goes Maimonides writes, the Yerushalmi writes, one has to risk one's life to save someone else? He quotes a Dine Mamanos phrase, Ein Safik Motzi Midei Vadai. That if you do nothing, that person's Vadai going to die. That if you go in and risk, it's only a suffix. So you're only a suffix risking your life. The other person's a Vadai dying. Therefore, Ein Safik Motzi Midei Vadai. And therefore, the Yerushalmi would say that one is obligated. As Rabbi pointed out, of course, there's going to be there's a fine line between doing something heroic and suicidal. You have to play the risk reward and know, if it's a 1% chance of making it, and so then obviously the answer is going to be no, but we'll get into that. So either way, that's the Yerushalmi, that one is obligated to risk one's life, put yourself to save someone else in Vadai Sakana. So the question is, number one is, who says the Yerushalmi paskins like Resh Lakish over Rav Yochanan? Secondly, Rav Moshe Feinstein points out, and others about Yosef, that even if this is true, that we follow Resh Lakish, but Resh Lakish isn't establishing normative halacha. Maybe you don't have to, but Resh Lakish decided he's going to go with Nibishuris Adin. How do you know from the Yerushalmi that is the normative halacha? So at best it shows one is allowed to. It wouldn't show that one is obligated to. And thirdly, the Mefarshim point out, we have a klal, they quote out from the Sefer HaChasidim, that Rav Imi, we know, is a big Talmud Chacham, a big Torah scholar. He was a well-established leader. So we have a principle that a big Talmud Chacham perhaps has the status of a Sibor. So maybe one-on-one you don't save the average Joe who's hostage. But a big rabbi, a big Talmud Chacham, a big Jewish leader, someone who has a prominent role, maybe that's different. So either way, there's difficulties with this Yerushalmi, and we're not even clear where this Yerushalmi is. The Netziv claims it's Yerushalmi in Trumas, this Yerushalmi. Rav Heller, who was a rabbi, he was a Rav in YU for a time. The parallel of salvation used to go to the class when he used to give. But he was very big on gears and that. He claims we don't have the Yerushalmi anymore. Not that the Yerushalmi doesn't exist. The many Yerushalmis we don't have today that people quote Yerushalmis, and he says we don't, but there's still...
It's not in the printed version.
Right, not in the printed version, but the poskim quote it, so we accept Yerushalmi in principle, but we don't actually know which Yerushalmi it's quoting. The Netziv claims it's this Yerushalmi, I quoted Ravimi. So either way, that's the Yerushalmi. Like it or not, that's the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says one is, of course you don't like it, because he says you're obligated. Like it or not, the Yerushalmi says one is obligated to risk one's life to save someone else. So the question is, do we paskin like this Yerushalmi? So let's assume the Yerushalmi says it, and it's establishing a normative obligation. Do we paskin like this Yerushalmi? So the Shema writes that if you look at the Rambam, the Rush, you look at the Shulchan Aruch, we find this halacha nowhere in the Shulchan Aruch that one is obligated. They don't quote the Yerushalmi. So it must be that if the Mechaber doesn't quote the Yerushalmi, it must be we don't paskin like this Yerushalmi. However, that's not so simple either, because as the Shulchan Aruch, as the Rabbi Yosef Kar writes his introduction to the Shulchan Aruch, he says, why did I write the Shulchan Aruch? I already wrote the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef is very comprehensive. It covers everything. Why in the world would I write a Shulchan Aruch? So he says, I'll tell you why. Two basic reasons. Number one is, for a Talmud Chacham who doesn't have time to go through the Beis Yosef all the time because it's very long, so if you want a chazer, I'd say every month, I'm not sure if he says every year, every month, or every week, whatever he says, for someone to be able to chazer the halachas, I wanted to make it that a Talmud Chacham could go over it quickly. And also secondly, for ketanim, for kids who can't learn the Beis Yosef, it's too difficult, but for kids to learn the Shulchan Aruch, that's what it's for. So what is he saying? If you want to really know what I'm saying, you got to check out the Beis Yosef. That's the real me. This is only the monarch notes over here. So if that's the case, the Beis Yosef quotes. That's a discussion among the poskim. When the Beis Yosef quotes something and the Mechaber doesn't, who do we really follow? So either way, but some poskim say the fact it's not brought down in Shulchan Aruch shows we don't pass. Others say that doesn't prove anything. So others point out, we don't reject the Yerushalmi categorically, but if it goes against the Bavli, we don't accept it. But if there's no Bavli against it, we go with it. So the question is there a Bavli against it? So the post can point out, we can find a couple of Gemaras against the Yerushalmi. Where are these Gemaras? Where are these Gemaras? So there's a Gemara in Nida with Rabbi Tarfon that the Gemara is talking about. We can't be makabel lashon hara, but don't ignore it either. In other words, if someone comes to you, you're looking for someone to work the cash register, and this person is a kol, this person's a big crook, and they apply for the job, I'm not saying don't categorically reject the person, check out to make sure if the rumor is true or not. But don't be naive and then leave him in your house and then everything is gone. So therefore, you have to be choshesh, but you can't be makabel. You have to check into it. Like that's what happened with Gedalia. Gedalia didn't accept the rumors they were coming, and now we have a fast day named after him. I mean, he would have been dead by now anyway, but he didn't listen to the rumors, and the person killed them. So either way, so Rabbi Tarfon says that someone came to him, there was a call, these people came to him and said that there was a rumor these people killed someone and the government was looking for them. And they came to Rabbi Tarfon to hide me. So they said, so Rabbi Tarfon said, he said, if I don't hide you, you're going to be risking your life. But if I do hide you, then I'm going to be risking me and my family. The bottom line, he didn't hide them. He said, go play hide and seek yourself. You go find a hiding spot. What do you need me for? So the bottom line, Rav Tarfon didn't hide them. So we see from here, why not? As I'm saying, we see from here, one does not risk one's own life or one's family's life to save someone else.
Rachav did do it.
Yes, so we'll see. That could be a midas chasidus, or we have to see the specific cases, yeah. And others point out it's not a good raya. The reason why Rav Tarfon didn't do it is because he felt they deserved it. He checked into the rumor. They were murderers. So I'm not going to. So you deserve to be killed. Wasn't the government was doing anti-Semitic things, and that's something else. Then but it was a case where these people deserved it, and therefore you didn't deserve to be saved. So some want to say maybe it's no raya. Others bring another Gemara, the famous Gemara in Baba Metzia, where a person's stuck in the desert and you only have enough water for yourself. So therefore, what do? So Ben Petira says you can't stand by idly and watch someone else die. You got to share the water. And Rabbi Akiva says Chayecha Kodman, that he quotes the pasuk Chayechicha Imak, that he learns out that your life takes precedence over everyone else's. You keep the water. So the question is, Ben Petira doesn't make any sense. It's a nice bumper sticker, but to say, I can't see my friend die. Okay, so you're both going to die. So you won't see him die, but you'll both be dead. It doesn't make sense to have two people dead instead of one. So what's pshat? So the Netziv points out, and others, no, of course, the pshat is that there wasn't a case where you're definitely going to die. Let's say you're 3 days away from civilization, you have 2 days of water. So if you, let's say you have 3 days, you have 3 days worth of water. So if you kept the water, you'll definitely make it home. But if you share the water, it gives you a day and a half. So maybe in the day and a half, you'll find more water, more food. Maybe the rescue committee will find you, the rescue team. So the question is, am I obligated to risk my own life to save someone else from vad? So Ben Petira says no. And Rabbi Akiva, basically Rabbi Akiva would agree in principle, except he says, what could I do? The pasuk says, V'chayechicha imach, your life takes precedence. So we see from here that we say you don't risk one's life to save someone else. So it comes out, it's a machlokas Bavli and Yerushalmi, whether one has an obligation to risk one's life to save someone else. So generally we pass like the Bavli against the Yerushalmi. So the first, the Meshach Chachma says, the Yerushalmi is going against the pasuk in Chumash. The pasuk in Chumash which said Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have to go to get the Jewish people out of Egypt until those people died. The implication being, as long as if I have to risk my life, I don't have to go. So, number one, others point out, no, that's not the pshat in the pasuk. Really, if you look before, God already told Moshe he's going. It wasn't like he already worked out he's going. And this is more like an annex. And by the way, when you're there, you don't have to worry about dasim. It wasn't that this was the determining factor. So therefore, the Maharal Diskin points out, if you look at the psukim before, he already gave permission, and therefore the pasuk isn't against the Yerushalmi. And secondly, the Or Sameach alias Meshach Chachma, that's his work on the Rambam as opposed to the Chumash, are the same person. The Or Sameach writes, the Yerushalmi is against the Mishnah in Makis, the Mishnah in Makis tells us that if a Goel Hadam is running after you, so you run to the Arei Miklat, and you're safe. If you leave the Arei Miklat, you put yourself in danger. So the Mishnah says, even if you're Yoav ben Tzruya, even if you're a general in the army and the country needs you to fight the war, even then you don't leave. So the Art Sameach that we see from here, why don't you leave? Because there's a Goel Adam outside waiting to kill you. We have to save Klal Yisrael. We see from the Mishnah that even you don't even risk one's own life to save the rest of Klal Yisrael. That's what the Art Sameach Raya. So what do we do with the Art Sameach? So how do you learn this? So some say there's 3 days learns the Mishnah. No, it's Exeris HaKasav. It's not telling me this halacha about risking one's life. We have Exeris HaKasav, Sham Tiyeh Misasam, Sham Tiyeh Kfur. It's a special Exeris HaKasav. You're not allowed to leave the Arei Miklat. You can't learn any halachas from it because it's a special halacha. Others point out, if he loved this, you have these people go around speaking to Gedolim all day and then writing books. Like, let's say this book on Pikuach Nefesh, like they go around draying like the Stipler or his son, and then they write up these long volumes just writing about what the Gedolim said. So in this Sefer he quotes from the Rav Chaim, the Stipler's son, or he's no longer, you think he's like 90 now, but I call him his son because I knew his father. I mean, I didn't know his father, but then when I was around, he was the Stipler and he was the son. The Rav Chaim, his son, so he points out that, he quotes him in saying that, what's the pshat? He says, do we ever find, let's say someone killed someone, and he's put on, he's supposed to be killed, but you know what? He's the only doctor in town who can do this surgery, this operation, or he's the only scientist who can make this medicine that saves thousands of people. Do we say that since this person if you kill him, he won't be able to do these things, and if he's alive, he's going to help hundreds and thousands of people, do we not kill this person who's Chayav Misa, or not? And let's say, if you die, let's say if you killed it, then the father who's going to hear about the news, he's going to die. Does that play a role when you have to give someone capital punishment? So the quotes from Rav Chaim Kamenetsky says that no, we never find anywhere that we don't kill someone who's worthy of Chayav Misa because of some other factors. You're not going to put, because you're a doctor, or you're the best lawyer, or because you're the best now, we keep you alive. In other words, we find Pikuach Nefesh is Docha Mitzvahs and Isurim, but it's never Docha Onshim. We never find that Pikuach Nefesh pushes out. If you deserve an Onish, we don't find that because you could save someone else's life. In fact, sometimes we even kill the mother together with the fetus in certain times. So they point out that the Arei Miklat Golus is an Onish, according to many Rishonim. So therefore, that's why, even though Yoav ben Tzruya could have went ahead and saved many people, but if you deserve this Onish, the fact that you can save other people doesn't play a role. So we see, so that's how they answer up the Meshach Chachma. So we see, we have a Machlokas Yerushalmi Bavli, whether one-on-one, whether you have to risk your life or not, you have a Chiyuv. Yerushalmi, yes. Bavli, no. Then we have further Machlokas among the Rabbim. So everyone says, well, everyone except the Meshach Chachma, if you could save Klal Yisrael, we assume not like the Meshach Chachma, that a Yachid does risk his life to save Klal Yisrael against the Meshach Chachma. And the Rav Kook wants to make a chiluk between Rabbim versus Klal Yisrael. Perhaps a Rabbim, no. If you could save 10 people, no. But Klal Yisrael, other people say even if it's a Rabbim, you could you make that decision.